Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. This is somewhere around episode 500. Every single week on the Shrimp Tank, we get to interview some of the brightest and best CEOs and entrepreneurs, not only in and around the city of Atlanta, but across the United States and now across the pond. Very, very exciting stuff today. As always, you can go to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, or Spotify to hear all of our shows, or go to shrimptankpodcast.com and make sure that you go to the YouTube channel. That's where you can check out all of the great videos that we've done with our 500 entrepreneurs here in Atlanta, the 14 cities we have across the United States. The Shrimp Tank has been growing because everyone wants to learn, how do I get an MBA in entrepreneurship, get this combination of book smarts and street smarts? And we are super excited today to have Richard Lovatt on. So many of our entrepreneurs say, hey, I want to figure out how, as an entrepreneur, I increase my net worth. And part of that is you have to learn over time how you close and seal the deal with big deals. I love your Instagram that says closed and paid, and Twitter. And I just love that in general in here. So you were actually an actor, and you defied the odds, and now you're training entrepreneurs on how to basically be a 9-figure, at least an 8-figure, but maybe even a 9-figure sales performer. Yeah.
Yeah, to put it simply, that you could say that. I mean, that's quite very high numbers, but I think my main message is to get people who are struggling paying their rent, don't know where to go, want to provide for the family, and to show them remote sales and high ticket closing can take you there in a matter of months, way over 6 figures easily.
Richard, I want to start off and just ask you, like, why, entrepreneurs they wear all these hats and different roles when they start a business, but what's the main reason you think a lot of entrepreneurs aren't successful in scaling sales in their business?
It's a very tough one because there's so many things that could go wrong. I think people often assume the prospect is wrong and the people coming are wrong, but often it's the offer that's going out, and whether it's a no-brainer or not. People always create their offers based on what they think rather than what the market wants. That's something I think about a lot.
Richard, I want a little background here, and we talked about you being over the pond, and here in the States, we've seen a little bit about Bollywood, but you're an actor in Bollywood. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what that is? Because there could be a misperception over here in the States of that background.
Yeah, well, it's a long story, so I'm just trying to think where to start. But look, Bollywood is by all means in many ways bigger than Hollywood, just because of the amount of viewership those guys get. It's insane, and the biggest actors out there are kind of bigger than your Tom Cruises in the US. They're kind of treated like gods, honestly. I used to live in India I did kind of film and TV at university. I went out to India to train Bollywood actors because I was a kind of personal trainer. But because I had a film background, I thought, you know what? I'll start auditioning out here. And I started landing roles, all very small ones, very cliche stuff, the police officer, the army guy, all the British kind of stereotypical roles where you have just one line in the movie. And that was kind of cool for a bit. I decided, you know what, to take it to the next level, I'll learn Hindi. I learned Hindi, and actually just last week I got back from India, where I filmed my biggest role, a massive Bollywood hit, where my whole role was, I was there for 3 months. My whole role was in Hindi. So when that comes out, it's going to be a different story for sure.
But you had no, even though you've had so much experience in acting, you never had any formal education in sales, though, did you? How did you learn about how to teach and become really good at sales?
Yeah, so honestly, it's really cool, the fact that I haven't ever bought a sales course. I haven't bought a sales book. And but you know what? I always ran my own fitness agency for many, many years. So I was always selling myself, just constantly getting new clients. It wasn't really high ticket though. And then just one year, I kind of heard about on Twitter, like, oh, this guy is a closer and he just closed this 25K deal on one day and he got 10% of it. Like, and that's just what he made, and he didn't have to deliver anything. So I was like, wait 1 second, guys. Like, this is reality. Like, that's a job, is it? And then I found out, and I was like, there's no way that I can't do that. You know, with my background of just hundreds of auditions in another language, failing, looking stupid often, I was like, if you can do that and you can do it in a film in a high pressure environment, I bet you if I put on a sales call, I won't feel that pressure. And, you know, it took me a few weeks to kind of pick it up, but then I became the #1 sales guy in the organization by far. And, you know, things built from there.
Well, you know, Richard, I speak all the time. I even wear a t-shirt that says your comfort zone will kill you.
Mhm.
And the way that you're talking about putting yourself in that
Right.
very uncomfortable situation even in the acting, that seemed to be a platform for you to take it to the business world. And I want to speak about something. And Ted, this is important. You know, Richard, we deal with a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs, and we've been doing this now, 15 cities across this country. We have our studios, over 1,500 podcasts with entrepreneurs. But something you said that resonated, I know your marketing material shows earn up to an 8-figure income. But you said, you know, you don't have to earn an 8 or 9-figure income. That was really important because a lot of viewers out here and a lot of people that listen go, well, 8, 9 figures, that's a little beyond my scope. But you immediately cut Ted and I off and you interrupted and said, hey, wait a minute. I can help you just even pay your bills. And I love that you brought it down a notch. Could you explain why you did that? Because most people talk about the millions of dollars they want to make or what they can
Right.
teach you. But instead, Richard, you actually focused on a realistic goal for most people. I really would love for you to elaborate on that.
Yeah, because look, the top closers in the world, and I know people a lot younger than me doing 100K a month, right? Ridiculous. But at the same time, guys, I know 17-year-olds, people coming out of college at school doing, you know, 5, 6K, 7K a month easily with no background, no understanding. They've just kind of picked up a course, they've got some teachings, they've landed a role because there's many kind of places you can go for these roles. And they're making a killing and they're doing it from home and they're doing it wherever they travel, you know. And it suddenly made me realize when I got into it heavily, actually the key here is being able to teach people that there's a way out of your 9 to 5. If you can't, you know, everyone's in bad money problems nowadays, and it's like people don't actually understand that sale, it sounds, everyone's like, oh, sales, don't like sales, but it's kind of, it's cool, and it can give you that life that you want and a bit more freedom. So that's kind of what I want to teach, you know.
When you teach these concepts about how to become a great salesperson, obviously there may be some traits that are natural born traits, and then there are some traits that you can learn. What would you say are the top 2 or 3 things that you've got to learn to become a high ticket salesperson, or somebody that can make, you know, 100K, you know, 500K as a salesperson?
Okay, well, it depends on like who you're selling to and the audience. Now, what I do is typically B2B, from business to business, and I speak to high level entrepreneurs and businesses, right? And in that case, when I'm speaking to these type of people, you can't be using sales tactics. People pick up on it straight away. They've heard it all. And so what I figured is like I gain respect of the people I'm speaking to within the first 5 minutes. If they respect me and they see me on a status, you know, maybe I'm speaking to a multimillionaire, their status is higher than me in this in life. But on this call, I am far higher status because I'm solving your problem, right? So I could be broke, but in this situation, I'm a much higher status. Now, if
And would you mind, Richard, can you give an example of where, you know, a viewer might understand I'm speaking to someone who has a higher business status or a higher status in the realm of their financial wherewithal. How exactly, give an example of how you do create that credibility and that trust, like you were saying, in a very short amount of time to keep their attention? Because you know everybody's attention span, Richard, is very small these days.
For sure, but at the end of the day, you've got to remember these people have booked onto my calendar. They've booked to speak with me. I know they have a problem and I know they want my service in some way. It's up to me to kind of, I don't like to say convince because I'm not trying to convince. But I do gain the respect within the first few minutes. And I do that because I come across very competent, authoritative. And I do that by saying, John, you know, I'll give you guys some examples. John, I'm kind of curious here. Like, what are you hoping to get from this call? right? And they'll come back to me and they'll tell me, oh, I'm just looking for pricing, how this works. Okay, I'll get into that, John. But before I do, let me give you an understanding of how I structure these calls. And then I go into my structure and I say, by the end of the call, John, honestly, all I'm looking for is a yes or a no. Is that fine with you? Right? And it's people would think if I wrote that, they would think like, hey, that's incredibly salesy. He's kind of pushing them into a yes or no. Whereas when I say it, you don't think, wait, he's pushing me here. You think that's quite empathetic the way he's saying it, you know? And all salespeople have this problem. Oh, Rich, by the end of the call, everyone wants to go away and think about it. Well, hey, when I speak and I tell them I'm looking for yes or no, subconsciously it plays with them a bit because they get to the end and they go, oh, I want to think about it, but I know you're looking for a yes or no. You know, and I'm like, yeah, because I'm looking for a decision. And by all means, say no, that's fine. But I'm not doing this whole, hey, go and think about it and I'll chase you. That's not what I'm going to do, you know? So that's kind of a higher status play.
It is kind of funny the way that you talk about this, because I have always thought, and I've sold hundreds of millions of dollars of stuff, and acting does, and the way that you actually enunciate your words, it does make a big difference. I remember there was a comedian here in the States. His name was Rob Schneider. Lee probably knows him. And he did this whole skit around the word dude. And the word that dude could have different meanings. And it could be something like, you totally blew it, where you go, dude. Or it could be like, are you in the closet with a knife, dude? And the whole point of what you're saying in here is that you can gain power as a salesperson, even if you didn't have all the competency, just by the way that you enunciate your words and how you position those phrases. Because like acting, words are very powerful if you can string them together in a sentence.
It's all pacing and tonality. You know, this is something that sales, it's hard to teach that with a written format, right? But the CEO of my company often says, Rich, all of what you write down is salesy, but when I hear you say it, you get away with everything, you know? Just to give you one more example, guys, because I was teaching my group today about one question that people like to ask is, hey, John, so have you decided now is the right time to invest in this solution? And it's incredibly salesy because you're trying to force them into saying, yes, I need it now, you know? Whereas I always take this question, which is a good one, but I precede it or proceed it with something that makes it non-salesy. So I'd say, John, with a risk of sounding too salesy, have you decided now is the best time compared to, let's say, 6 months ago? So I've called out it being salesy, which takes it off the table. And then I've given them a proceed of the question, which is, why didn't you do something 6 months ago and not now? So I've taken something that's a great question, but made it non-salesy.
Richard, you're hitting grand slams. I at 52 years old, at my age, I have heard for decades that I can get away with murder. Ted said it to me, the way that I say things. I can say the worst things in the world to you, such as, look at the funny way that you drink that bottle, Richard, right? It's very emasculating, right? Or something along those lines. And you'd laugh at me. And then I would get a cup and use a straw and sip it right now in front of you to make a joke. But it's never what you say, it's how you say it. And I have lived my life on that. So you are singing, you're at the top of the mountain singing, at the top of the mountain singing these praises, because I completely agree with you. But let me also throw this at you, and I want to ask the next question, because we're on a Zoom. If we were on a phone call, we'd be one layer removed. So, phone calls in the old day, you're very removed. Zoom has kind of bridged that gap, but there's nothing like in person. Now, Richard, I would rarely be more confrontational in a way that you want to do the sales if I'm on a phone call, maybe a little more on Zoom, but in person, I can get away with murder. The body language, the tone, the interaction. How much do you work when you work remotely? How effective are you if you're in person? There's got to be a different affect to your environment. Would you agree or disagree?
I would agree, but I effectively get away with more over Zoom.
Okay, please explain that.
Well, no, there's just this kind of barrier that In person, I'm kind of I definitely feel like I don't want to push the boat too far. We're in person, I don't want to rock that boat. Whereas on a Zoom call, I have this barrier. It's like a cam when I'm doing an audition. It's not the real thing. And so I'm auditioning and I'm trying things. Whereas when I'm on sales calls like this, I'm trying stuff all the time and pushing the boat and seeing what works, trial and error like that.
Ted, I didn't
I'm
want
wondering,
Oh, go ahead.
Richard, that the pandemic came, it definitely changed the way that we do business as a whole, because we are doing more business on video conferencing meetings like Zoom. And I know that you've talked before that if you're trying to train a sales team, more people want to work remotely today. In the good old days, you might take a salesperson, they ride shotgun with you, you do a few sales calls with them, you get a drink at the pub. Now, if you work remote, how do you keep that energy, the engagement, and how do you train salespeople to know that they're doing it right?
Well, it sounds great, guys, but I want to just be very frank here. It sounds better than it is, and there's nothing like having an office environment with everyone in there and everyone meeting together and giving everyone props and having good energy. It's so difficult when you've got 8 people on a team all around the world and getting them to be motivated the whole time. You're not there with them. And at the same time, guys, I've been doing this job, and right now I've been in India for 3 months. I was in the Caribbean, I was in Spain. I want to say right now, traveling and doing this job is difficult. And I would actually prefer to stay in one place and just get my routine. That's me. But for people who want to go and, let's say you have family in a different country, you want to go and stay with them, remote sales is perfect because you can go and see your family, stay there, and still effectively work. That makes sense.
Well, no, very much so. Richard, what would be the top 3 things that you would, when you speak to your audience, you speak to our audience, even your clientele, give us the top 2 to 3 things that you would say, I want you to avoid? Because Richard, with respect, it looks easy, right? Think of your life, the way that you're perceived. Hey, I can just do this. I don't have to leave if I'm doing it remotely. Of course, as you said, travel is difficult. Give me the 2 to 3 things, getting very real with the audience, to say, these are the 3 things to avoid.
What, when you're in a position?
Absolutely.
Number one, just because it's remote doesn't mean it's any less of a job than full-time. I think I've seen a lot of people come into it and like, hey, I can just do 4 sales calls and make money and I'm done. No, the most successful people apply themselves for many hours and there's many tasks on top. I work 12 to 14-hour days sometimes. It's kind of ridiculous, but I love my
Would you
work.
mind repeating that again? How many hours a day do you work?
Honestly, some days 12, 14 hours.
And you understand, Richard, why I'm wanting you to highlight that is because your level of success, everybody sees this, they're listening to it and they think, I can't do that. Or this is too easy. Pardon me. It's so easy. But the reality is they don't see the grind. You may get that successful opportunity where you're working with someone, but they don't see the 11 hours of failures. Would that be accurate?
I wouldn't say 11-hour failures, but I think salespeople get this thought that they can just take sales calls, close a deal, and then their job is done. But that might be the case on some offers, by the way. I know kids doing 20, 30K a month, and they just do 5 hours of sales calls. So there are offers out there. I think for me, when I came in part-time on this offer whilst doing a few others. So I was earning money from different offers. You can do that in sales. And then when I thought, do you know what? I need to knuckle down. I need to concentrate here to earn more and to potentially level up. Then it became, okay, I'm working 12-hour days here to make this happen. So.
Oh, Ted, I think we lost you. You're muted, Ted. You're
No,
muted.
I'm back on here.
Back.
I was just there was some background noise in here, but I'm so fascinated by this because I believe for any entrepreneur to be successful, there is a period of time, maybe not forever, where they're going to have to wear the sales hat in many ways. Does that sales hat change in the way that you bring on employees in the company, or are you still thinking about this operatively in the same way that you'd be selling people that would be buying your products and services?
It's a tough one for me, guys, because I try everything I do in life, actually, even like this, I semi-treat it like a sales call, and lots of things come out that I do in sales. you know. And when I'm interviewing people and everything like that, I'm always perceiving body language and perceiving status, how they perceive me, whether I'm in control. You know, these are all things running through my mind a lot. And that's maybe an issue that I find because I'm doing sales so often. It's ingrained in my life. When I go and meet people and go to a restaurant and I do all this, I'm perceiving all of this back and forth, you know. It's not great. My fiance, who I've just got engaged with, says I'm always selling myself, you know, when we're out and places.
Well,
So,
Richard,
so
I would
want to
like
know
to.
this.
Oh, sorry, Ted, go ahead.
Lee, I was going to ask. You know, we often do these sections, and we don't have to go through all of it now, called Plead the Fifth, and we do some Plead the Fifth type questions. But I'm just wondering. I know that you've got at least 1 or 2 tattoos, maybe more than that. But I'm wondering what you think about the sales world today, about the visibility of things like tattoos. Does it matter at all anymore?
This is a thing. Like my dad, when I started getting really successful at this, he's old school. And he was like, Rich, like, there's no way you can sell a 100K deal, you know, looking like that with, I've got a chest tattoo. And I was like, it's not the case at all. And I speak to lots of older gentlemen, older women, who you might think that might play a role, but it's all about perception and respect. So they're only they might see visually this and think something of me to start with. But once I start talking and my level of expertise and knowledge and status, it just shuts off everything else they can comprehend, you know, and then it becomes obsolete. Who cares? He got tattoos. This guy knows his shit, you know.
Exactly right. No, I agree with you 100%. The moment we met you, I had no preconceived notions except for your bio and the good-looking gentleman that I saw in the bio. So I'm glad the same guy showed up here. But I'm going to ask a low-hanging fruit. I always ask this in the Plead the Fifth, Richard, and I'm glad you said you have a fiance. But if your fiance were sitting next to you right now, and I were to say, what is the one thing you would change about Richard? What would she say?
Oh, so I've got ADHD. So I'm insanely they say people with ADHD, they have a problem focusing. So I kind of have a problem focusing on many tasks, but once I'm on a task and I like it, you won't get me off. That's why I kind of because I like my work, I can do 12, 14-hour days. And I forget there's a world outside me, including my fiance.
Wait, and that's brilliant. And I do have one question, Richard, for listeners out there. There's some nuance in what you say, the way you specifically say certain things, and I can see it's very deliberate. Something else that you just said was, I can work all day long and be focused when I like it. And there's no way that every part of your day or every entrepreneur's day or someone that might want to work with you, they like everything they're doing every day. What do you do in those moments when you have to work on something that you don't like?
Okay, well, most people understand this. If you're being paid, if you are being paid based on performance and you are making let's just say 30K a month, which is totally achievable. I know it sounds crazy. All those tasks that seem admin-like, that are kind of annoying, are suddenly not annoying, because if you actually put in the effort and work, that 30K can become 40K. And that's how I start to perceive it. You know, I am someone who used to swap between jobs. I don't like this, don't like this. I've lost interest. And then suddenly my performance affected how much I made. You know, and then it was like, oh, whoa, if I focus now 14 hours, I can make more. Okay, well, I'll do that.
You know, I'm wondering, given your comment about the hours and everything, and knowing the kind of hours I've worked as an entrepreneur, obviously as a salesperson over time, do you actually believe that work-life balance is sustainable? It's doable, or is it not?
I'm not sure if you guys know Alex Hormozy, but I think he spoke about this lately. And he was like, look, people won't like this, but I work all the time. And when I'm burnt out, I go and watch binge TV, and then I come back when I'm ready. And if it was just me living my life here without a fiance, I would work every day, all the time. I'm not interested in music. I'm not interested in video games. I'm not interested in film, TV. I don't care. I would just keep working because it's what I enjoy. You know, but is that sustainable long term? I'm not sure.
Fair, but it's not really work, Richard, if you're enjoying it. So there's a fine line there.
That's what I think. Yeah,
it's just a part of your life. So, Richard, again, time flies when you're having fun. Of course, 30 minutes has already nearly flown by. How do people get in touch with you? Not only how do they follow you? How do they get in touch with you? How do they utilize your services?
Yeah. So on all my socials are closedandpaid.com. That's my website, that's my Twitter, my YouTube, everything, Instagram. You can follow my content there. I've got a group and it's a paid group. I think it's $50 a month. And it's really cheap because I know people in my industry sell the same, well, not the same stuff because mine's better, but they sell it for $6K. And I'm charging $50 a month to just have it, you know?
It's a rounding error. It's a rounding error in their books.
No,
I love it.
It's $6,000 to get their material, you know, and they do
Crazy.
help people. But, you know, I released my course because I wanted to get this info available to everyone. You know.
Well, it sounds like, folks, if you're looking to get things closed and paid, I love that. I'm thinking about that all the time right now. Closed and paid. Talk to Richard in here. My final question for you is, what's your number one sales book? Do you have a book that you've read that you think is great, or no?
I've never read a book or a course. I hate reading, so my course would be the number one, obviously, but closedandpaid.com is where it's at.
That's what it sounds like to me, folks. If you're watching this and you're only at 50K a year of income and you want to get to 100K, or you're at 100K, you want to get to 500K or 500K and get to 1 million, check out Richard's courses. Check him out on Twitter, Instagram, Closed and Paid. It can make a world of difference. And in 12 months, you could be doubling or tripling your income. So this is a great conversation. I love it. I love it. I love the Bollywood. I love the acting. And thanks so much for spending half an hour with us today on the Shrimp Tank.
Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.